Welcome back to the Purple Political Breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. How's your day been? How's your holidays been? Merry Christmas, of course. The year of 2024 is about to come to an end, and this is kind of the renaissance of the podcast, and I think it's needed more than ever, considering how the political left and the political right are devouring themselves. They are tearing each other apart. They're splintering. We need that nuanced voice. We need those appropriate conversations that is not shouted by misalignment, by misinformation. And that's what this podcast tries to provide. At the very least, nuanced conversations and factual information. And in order to do that, I do have a feature on the podcast that I very much appreciate called US Resist News, a nonprofit news service dedicated to truthful reporting in the age of disinformation. If you want to learn more about them, go to www.usresistnews.org. You can find my podcast and a lot of good information over there that if you want to stay informed of politics that I highly recommend following. Now, of course, you can continue listening to my podcast because I'm here to just give you the factual information. I'll always weed out whether something is my personal opinion, but ultimately I'm talking to you not to be this nuanced centrist. Well, I am here to be the nuanced centrist, but the nuanced centrist to guide, not this nuanced centrist to inform. But I'm also here to tell you the factual information. And if at any point you disagree with anything that I have to say on my podcast, or if you guys want to talk to me as individuals, feel free to contact me. My email is connected to my podcast, thetrendgoldenfaith@gmail.com. You can come on this podcast and we can have a grand old conversation. I'm trying a new style of dialogue and talking, and I even have the mic in my hand. It's a little bit more comfortable. We can have a good conversation as we talk today for the podcast. Now, 2024 was very interesting. A lot of things happened. A lot of bad. Quite a lot of bad. There is some good in there too, but it's overshadowed, of course. We'll always try to bring the good, because we are still always trying to improve as a society. Sometimes we get clouded by the bad so much we don't realize how much society and humanity has progressed compared to the old times. Sometimes that self-reflection is very valuable. But one thing that is very clear, 2025 is going to be a very pivotal period of time, moving forward especially, because this is going to be the official first year of Donald Trump. Now, we already been through a Donald Trump presidency, and you could say a lot of things about that. A lot of lies were told about that. A lot of truths were told about that. But one thing we can all be assured is that this presidency will be very different from any other we have had. Donald Trump seems to know what he's doing. Donald Trump is filling the White House, his executive branch, with loyalists. The legislative and the judicial is all loyal to him as well. This presidency, after COVID is finished, and in the looming threats of two huge wars, could really spell out a very interesting period in not only American history, but also world history as well. So we will see how 2025 takes place. But one thing you can be assured of is that this podcast is not going anywhere. We'll be making episodes once or twice, maybe even more times a week. And we'll try to get more consistent content on the YouTube channel, going over very important political issues, cultural issues that I think should be at the very least talked about in a very appropriate, nuanced, respectful, and fun manner. So today's podcast episode, a lot of it's going to be talking about some of the things that you guys may not be aware of. And one of the things is that apparently Joe Biden has signed in 50 bills into law on Christmas Eve. One thing that I've criticized quite consistently in terms of the US government is how the inability to inform the populace in a factual and very easy manner is lost upon me. For example, I know the government doesn't control the media. Although that is the conspiracy that the government controls the media. But the government has influence, and 100% does, in every avenue. I mean, they're the government, of course. They're here to protect and serve the people. They should at the very least be able to let everybody know who has a technological device that a new bill has been signed into place. You know how we have Amber Alert on all of our phones? Which we should, by the way. I know some people don't like to have their information given out or whatever, but having the information that a child has been taken, I think, is valuable. Why can't we have alerts for bills signed into place? It just helps people know what's going on in the world. It helps people know what's going on in the government. Just let us know that you signed a bill into place. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to look up the bill. I had no idea 50 bills were signed into place on not Christmas Eve, and I go out of my way to go look up politics. I have multiple sources that inform me every single day via my email. That's a problem. So hopefully that suggestion is not lost upon anybody who listened to this podcast episode. But let's talk about some of the bills that were signed into place. We got the Paris Hilton bill. Why is it called Paris Hilton? No idea. But apparently the bill is here to protect teenagers living in residential treatment facilities. I think that's a good thing. Do you agree? I think it is. Children, teenagers, no matter the situation, no matter how, well, for the most part, no matter how bad they have done, they are the future of America, and treating them with the utmost care is probably the most important thing America should do. I believe so, anyway. Another bill that was signed into place is a bill setting an anti-hazing standard on college campuses. Again, protecting the youth. Personally, I'm not a fan of hazing. I almost joined a fraternity back when I was in college. I decided not to go through with it because I could not be bothered to be hazed. The reason why is very clear. I went through boot camp. How many people can say they've done that? Went through boot camp. Was pretty successful in boot camp too. Never had any big issues. It was just very tedious. And I went through Marine Corps boot camp just to give myself a little bit more of an edge. At the end of the boot camp, I even had nerve damage on my left arm. So I had no interest in going through tomfoolery at that time, because after boot camp, I went straight to college. So I couldn't be bothered. Honestly, hazing can have a interesting aspect to it. There can be a level of bullying and malpractice, and then there could be a level of tradition and entertainment behind it. So if we can find a appropriate balance, I think that is appropriate. And then the last one I'm going to talk about for now is a bill preventing members of Congress from collecting pensions if convicted of certain crimes. I don't know why we can't extend this. How about we have the bill preventing Congress members of any crime preventing their pensions? Why does anybody deserve to be rewarded for being a criminal? Especially if your job is to serve the public. Is there some leeway? For example, littering maybe? Maybe a speeding ticket. Maybe. But ultimately, if it's a felony, I see that there's no actual cause for any type of exception. That's my personal thoughts. You can let me know what you guys think, of course. With that said, some other stuff that has taken place in recently, or at the very least information that has dropped that I think you guys will find very important, is that ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, deported over 270,000 people in a year. Now, what does that number mean to you exactly? Well, for those who believe that Joe Biden is just letting this immigration crisis go to the wayside, this completely debunks that notion. If Joe Biden is deporting the highest annual deportation in a decade, then at that point, you only can say that no, Joe Biden wasn't just allowing immigrants in the country. It's a large number, ladies and gentlemen. A large number of people to deport. It's almost like the immigration crisis is much more nuanced than MAGA wants you to believe. And I've already debunked a lot of the notions regarding immigrants where people just think a lot of bad people are in the country. Those bad people that try to come into the country, sometimes things slip through the cracks. Nothing is perfect. and I won't even think that it is. But those slips in the crack should be brought to justice. And then these other ones get deported, which is why there's a record number of deportations. But the other people who you claim, MAGA, is illegal immigrants, in reality, are not. I've already brought that up. There's a lot of very reasonable reasons why a lot of these people are here, and they're providing a lot to the country as well. With that said, another thing to bring up in regards to Donald Trump eventually taking office is that there's reliable sources claiming that the moment he takes office that he plans to leave the World Health Organization. I feel like we're not surprised about that. He's made several claims already that he thinks it's run by China. What will this mean for the world as a whole? It just means more than what we know. He has no interest in helping the world. None at all. Let's continue. A couple of public safety announcements that I think you guys should know to keep yourself secure. Actually, before we get into that, let's have a little fun. Let's have talk about something else. I know you're here for politics, of course, but just to know that I'm not just the same political shill. There's other hobbies that I like as well. For example, I'm a big fan of football. Go Chiefs. Hey, who else believes Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT? Yeah, I know. I hear some of you guys. I feel like a lot of Tom Brady fans are probably MAGA supporters. You know what's funny? Apparently, Brittany Mahomes was supporting Donald Trump too. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of rich people supported Donald Trump. I don't even think that a lot of rich people know anything about politics. They're just prominent figures. Then there's other rich people who don't support Donald Trump. LeBron James, for example. Personally, Michael Jordan is my GOAT. My favorite player is Kobe Bryant. Sports is very fun, don't you agree? A question though, with Netflix doing what it's doing, what do we think about Netflix kind of creating this empire of sports entertainment? The WWE on Netflix, the NFL games are on Netflix. Soon they're going to get NBA games as well. We can all imagine. It's just food for thought, right? And also, I'm going to give you guys a recommendation for something you guys can watch, have fun with, you know? If you guys see the One Piece flag, of course I could recommend an anime, but I'll make it very easy on all of us here. Go watch Arcane. Go watch Arcane season 1 and season 2. You're gonna enjoy it. I can almost guarantee it. Now let's talk about some politics again. So the FBI issued a couple warnings regarding emails. Apparently, there's a bunch of cyber criminals that are increasing their sophisticated malpractice using AI-powered phishing and malware attacks, despite efforts by Google to block these spam emails. New tools like Apple's Hide My Email and Google's upcoming Shielded Email aim to protect users, but are less effective if personal data is already compromised. So what does this mean for you? Take every measure possible. Internet's becoming much more sophisticated to protect your own information. Use different passwords. Two-factor authentication. It's just valuable for everybody to protect their emails, their text messages. Be very wary on using encrypted messaging platforms like WhatsApp, for example, and Telegram. Although those are good for certain communications, they're also very compromised for others. Moving forward, there's also bird flu that is kind of going around as well. So I also think that you guys pay attention to that with birds flying around. A couple of people already have gotten it and gotten severe cases, one in Louisiana as of recently. So always pay attention to the new diseases that may go out. And we all know that Robert F. Kennedy is not a fan of vaccinations, so take care of yourself. Really do. But speaking of health, I think it's only appropriate to talk about some of the things that the FDA is doing. But before we do that, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the large one, the one that everybody's talking about. Well, mostly the left. Luigi Mangione. A prominent figure that has sparked a lot of conversation in today's political games. The left is so foolish. I say it all the time. The woke left and MAGA are two sides of the same coin. Uninformed, idiotic, moralistic individuals who believe they are on the side of justice, but will do truly despicable and evil things to acquire that said justice. I don't want to call you people evil, but I will say that your actions are problematic. From January 6th to the BLM riots, there's really no difference from the behavior. And the idea to constantly look at the other side and say, what about them, is not truly taking accountability of one's actions. With that said, let's talk about Luigi Mangione. I've talked about him quite a bit, but let's talk about some of the recent things that have been taking place. Now, Luigi, as of right now, is getting a lot of support. I've already said that he's getting a lot of donations. We have people protesting for his safe release or something like that. People complaining whether or not he should get the death penalty. Now, the death penalty is completely your own, and we'll run back the death penalty conversation when we talk about Joe Biden and some of his commutations for death row and death row prisoners. However, I don't really care about that conversation of the death penalty. Honestly, I could care less whether or not Luigi dies. That's what I personally believe. I have the same type of emotional attachment to Luigi than I did to the healthcare official. The only thing I care about is principle. The principle of action that can lead to the demise of the United States of America. And assassinations is one said action. So that's why I believe the comparison of Luigi to other individuals is quite foolish. Of course, I personally compared Luigi to George Floyd. Not to compare their actions or them as people, but more so to compare the response to both of the actions that correspond with both individuals. I just found it an interesting sample size to truly diagnose the left. But the current comparisons that are going over all over the internet, we got Kyle Rittenhouse and Luigi. Now, I've already talked about it. It's absolutely foolish to compare the two. And people trying to make up the claim that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't have a case of self-defense are just delusional. I can't help you, and I have no intention to try. So, self-defense versus assassination is pretty cutthroat, pretty clear. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. But now, the other conversation is comparing Luigi getting the penalty that he's getting to other individuals that have done despicable things. Even though a man's life has been taken, one thing that we can say for certain is that other people, in comparison to the ones that are compared to Luigi as of right now, you could argue have been doing worse. So, people have been comparing Luigi to mass shooters. Mass shooters who have obviously taken the lives of many. And a lot of these people have been diagnosed with a plea of insanity, oftentimes, even crazy, or have not gotten the death penalty. Now, again, I want to have a full conversation of the death penalty later, but one thing that I will say, as of right now, is that the death penalty is decided state by state. So, you can decide on what you think about that based on your own state. It's your own principle. I can care less on your opinions on the matter. And the other part is the plea of insanity. I think that one's so touchy. I think we can have a full conversation later on the validity of the insanity plea deal, because I'm not fully bought in. I don't know if it's viable personally. You can't justify terrible actions of an insane person. So trying to make them less insane doesn't really bring true justice, does it? It's a touchy one. But ultimately, the situations are just far different from Luigi. He's not insane. He's not crazy. He's a normal thinking individual who took matters into his own hand, thinking that he's some type of vigilante. And he just killed the man because he believed the system was rigged. If we go down that line of thinking, ladies and gentlemen, America will cease to exist. All the people trying to take matters into their own hands because of a rigged system. I saw a TikTok recently. A TikTok that was pretty standard I believe that 4 women, black teenagers, no, black young adults, all of them over the age of 20, were stealing a lot of money or stealing a lot of products from a store. They stole quite a bit, actually. Over $1,000 worth of products and merchandise. And I saw something in the comments. What I saw in the comments is sympathy for the criminals. So much so that they believe that it was the store owner's fault that they were led to do this. So again, I say that when it comes down to this behavior of taking justice into my own hands to fix the system, that will ultimately lead to our destruction. I know people want this utopian society that fixes all our problems, but if we achieve true utopias, then those unfortunate that we claim to care about will cease to exist, because they will be treated as cattle. A true utopia can only be achieved when you sacrifice people. That's just the truth. This idealistic Garden of Eden is impossible to have without true sacrifice. But the ignorant will say as they please, and it just is what it is. Let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about healthcare. So apparently, the FDA has approved Zepbound, a new medication for treating sleep apnea in obese adults. It's the first drug approved for this condition in the United States and showed results like a 20% average weight loss and fewer breathing interruptions during sleep. These new obesity drugs are quite fascinating. Because for me, I'm getting a little chubby. You can see it in my cheeks personally. I need to be grinding in the gym. But I put the faults of my weight gain in me. I'm not working out. So I went out of my way to find means to be more active. As you can see, I have a bike. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Let me just make this easier. You see this? This is my little bike in my room. If I brought this down, I have a walk-in treadmill. If I look over there, here's a pull-up bar. I think you could see right here, jump rope. So I do what I can to be as active. And I have a gym membership that I try to go to as often as I can. I go out of my way to be as healthy as I can, but I'm still dissatisfied with my own effort, and I blame myself. That accountability can be very powerful. But I do think there needs to be recognition that not everybody has the means or the want or the implanted idea to take that accountability. They fall in this trap. They fall in this hold of dismay and despair, and then ultimately leads down to a very unhealthy lifestyle. You know what encapsulated this the most? The movie The Whale. Though you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. It's a very good one. The Whale is a movie starred by Brendan Fraser. I haven't heard of that name in a while, I'm sure. Where a very, very obese man is trying to create a relationship with his daughter that he abandoned. He's made a lot of mistakes in his life. And after the death of his boyfriend, who he left his wife and child for, he went to this level of depression that caused him to become severely overweight. You can blame himself for causing himself to get that obese. But there needs to be a level of understanding that the ease of access of food, the inability to self-reflect, the non-discipline, it's quite normal in people. If they have the ability to satiate themselves with something that feels good, they'll take advantage of that opportunity more often than not. Now I had to change the setup because the mic kept on unplugging. I'll have to figure something out at a different time. But ultimately, it's in the best interest of the government to help guide the people, help make things easier for them as they live their lives, and we have to do what's in the best interest of the people and their health and their happiness. I mean, that's what the government is there for, right? So it's a good thing that this may be a step in the right direction, as the FDA updated their guidelines to redefine which foods that can be labeled as healthy, focusing on overall nutritional qualities. Foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins qualify while processed. Fortified products like while processed fortified products like white bread are excluded. So this is an example, and hopefully they continue this and help make it easier for the people who don't know how to take care of themselves. Guide them in the right direction. You can't help those who don't want to help themselves, but as an entity here for the people, you can guide them in the right direction. I mean, the perfect example of this is religion, right? If you're a Christian, I'm sure you understand that the church, well, the good ones, are not there to control you. They're not there to tell you how to live. They're there to preach to you, to give you principles on how to live a better life, to guide you. I think we understand what I'm talking about. We need not religion, but we need, when policies are put into place, to put them into place to help guide Americans in the right direction. Not morph their ideology. That's not why I brought up religion. Don't get fooled just because God was brought up. But speaking of religion and God and the important values that are essential to determine what is a good or bad individual, I think we can all recognize that when there are bad individuals in the government, we want to toss them aside. They deserve justice. So that's why someone like Matt Gaetz should be treated like the alleged villain he is. Because the House Ethics Committee has dropped a report on him. Now, you should know this. I said this last episode that they were going to drop the report. A committee filled with Democrats and Republicans. And the report alleges that Matt Gaetz have violated several ethics rules by spending over $90,000 on sex and drugs, including transactions involving women, such as 17-year-old. Now, it was quite disgusting to see that in my comment section there was a individual who tried to defend Matt Gaetz, saying in some states having sex with a 17-year-old is legal. It really tells you what the morals on some MAGA individuals truly lie, is to protect their leaders, not to have the moral values to protect the people. Yeah, but am I surprised? No, I'm not. Another thing that is very important to note of another bad individual is Shane Lamont, a retired officer who was convicted of obstructing justice and leaking information to Enrico Tarrio, the Proud Boys leader. Lamont shared confidential details during Tarrio's investigation, including events tied to the January 6th Capitol riot. You know what I learned from watching a couple of movies such as Boys in the Hood and American Gangsta? Not only did I learn a value of culture, because people may say quite a few different things about moi, saying that I'm not black enough. Doesn't really hurt my feelings. But I do like to understand the different sides of American and culture. And one thing that I always knew, but now I fully solidified the opinion, so I can outspeak it to people, and even endorse the opinion, is that the only thing that is worse than a criminal is that someone pretending to be good but are equally as bad. Corrupt cops are a plague on society. Honestly, you could argue a corrupt cop deserves a worse punishment than a criminal, as long as the activities match, of course. I would argue a corrupt cop deserves a worse punishment. I would argue a cop should be held at the highest standard, which means the highest level of resources, the highest level of training, and the highest level of regulation. There's such a clear difference when it comes to standards of a police department and military personnel. It's quite laughable. Military personnel are required to be at a certain weight limit, or military personnel are required to be in a certain fitness level. They are given so much more money and resources. To expect a fat man to run down a criminal, to have the composure to deal with tense situations, I think we're asking a lot, don't you? So that's why I never bought into the idea of defund the police. No, let's fund them more. Let's give them more training, stricter regulation. They're more valuable than any security force in the world for the average person. The military's value is to the country and its legitimacy, and obviously its dominance and its power. But to the average person, the most important force is the cop. It's the police officer. It's 911. So, shouldn't this first level of justice be held at a higher standard? I feel like we can all agree. It's quite disgusting anytime you see potential racist cops. No, oftentimes they're misunderstood. They're deemed villains when they're not. But those who are truly villains should be brought to justice. My favorite word for today's podcast: justice. Moving forward, the Biden administration approved a $4.2 billion in student loan forgiveness for public service workers. The program now has forgiven about $180 billion in total loans for nearly 5 million Americans, including teachers, nurses, and law enforcement officers. Very important. Very good, too. I know people don't like loan forgiveness, but again, this is kind of harps back what I said, is that America is here for the people. Not here for a system of flourishment, but here for the betterment of the Americans who, especially when it comes to college loans, you can't, and I dare anybody to have the conversation with me, but you can't argue with me that an 18-year-old going to college and taking in college loans has enough experience and perspective and knowledge to know whether or not college is truly for them, and whether or not those student loans will affect them for the rest of their lives. It's foolish. Quite so. And that's also a bad part of public education needs to be better. Now, I like to repeat things that I've already said, so I'll repeat it now. That includes Republican schools and Democrat schools. And let's be very clear. Democrat states far exceed Republican states when it comes to public education. But we're not perfect, so don't pretend we are. Also, there was a act that was potentially passed. The Social Security Fairness Act aims to eliminate benefit reductions for retirees with foreign or government pensions, potentially increasing payments by up to $550 per month for some. Another thing that Joe Biden has been putting into place and signed into, or trying to sign into act at the very least, trying to help Americans deal with this financial situation. Another thing is the IRS will issue automatic payments this month to about 1 million taxpayers who didn't claim the 2021 recovery rebate credit. The total payments will be around $2.4 billion, with individuals amount up to $1,400. These payments are for those eligible for economic impact payments but didn't claim them on their 2021 tax return. So, if you didn't claim this, you might be liable to get this. So, this should be very interesting. So a couple of things that are taking place, but let's talk about something that I feel like has been going over on Twitter at the very least. People have been criticizing Joe Biden for this, is that he commutated the sentences of 37 federal death row inmates, reducing their punishments to life without parole. This is interesting. Now, this move ensures the next administration cannot resume federal executions except in cases involving terrorism or hate-motivated mass murder. Why is this interesting? Well, it seems like a lot of people are being very critical on Joe Biden in terms of making this decision. And I'll make it very simple from my point of view, who is not ideologically captured. I don't understand why he did this. I don't get the validity. I don't know why we should care about death row inmates and whether or not they have life without parole or go on the death penalty. Now, that's from a person who personally does not care about these individual lives. However, if you believe the death penalty is wrong in every single circumstance, if you believe in the value of life as an individual and it should not be taken by the government, I understand your point of view. I do. So, I don't really have a strong opinion. Ultimately, they're getting punished regardless. So criticizing Joe Biden for just changing the punishment they're given is honestly foolish. They still got life in prison without parole. It's not like they're getting free. I just don't understand why we waste our time for this. That's it. That's my only gripe with this. It's a waste of time to put energy into this. But if it's a principle moral thing, I respect it. Simple as that. I respect it. Moving forward, we should definitely have a future political episode to talk about the prison systems in America. Because although there has been a lot of criticism, a lot of viable ones too, to be honest, with its unfair treatment of black people in particular, and the privatization of prisons to make a potential buck. There should be conversations on if we're doing what's in the best interest on rehabilitating prisoners appropriately. So apparently Alabama has a long history of contracting prisoners to private companies, generating over $250 million since the year of 2000. In the last 5 years, more than 10,000 inmates have worked 17 million hours outside prisons for various entities. Prisoners disproportionately black can face punishment for refusing work, and turning down jobs can affect their parole chances. Oversight is minimal, leading to escapees. Companies involved having policies against forced labor but are still investigating. Advocates argue that this is unfair. It's kind of like slave labor. And the AP's investigation highlighted the extensive use and economic impact of prison labor in Alabama. This is just an example of a potential lingering problem of using prisoners like they're slaves. Now, do I feel remorseful for people who potentially have done wrongful action? No. But there is always the chance that the crime does not fit the punishment. There's also the chance that someone has been mischaracterized, or at the very least has been mistrialed in something that they did not do. Ultimately, everything's contextual. But we should all be able to agree that Alabama using prisoners as slave laborers for their own vices is not moral. It's not the best use of governmental power. But Let me know what you guys think, of course. Let's talk about some other issues that may be a little bit leaning on the international. This is interesting. I don't know how true this is, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'll present you the information, and I'm going to put a asterisk right here. The reason why is because I know a lot of Russian propagandists want to latch onto this. With that said, let's talk about it because it's interesting at the very least. Russia announced it will begin distributing a personalized cancer vaccine for free to patients in early 2025. Apparently, the vaccine is designed to suppress tumor growth and marks a significant advancement in cancer treatment. Well, won't this potentially change the outcome of the Russian-Ukraine war? Is this true? I don't know. Couldn't say. We would have to verify this with our own eyes to really see if this is a true thing, because obviously Russia is pushing propaganda all over their country. This can be a faux pas. Why would Russia lie about this? Or why would Russia reveal this? Is it for the betterment of humanity? No, I don't believe so. I truly believe it's a political strategy. A very intelligent one, matter of fact. I have a vaccine for cancer. That makes Russia a very valuable product, a valuable partner. And that gives Russia more leverage than expected. If you want hands on this cancer treatment vaccine, then you give us what I want. Or is Russia really that bad if they have a vaccine for cancer that they're giving out for free? They control the political leverage avenue with this reveal, potentially, as they control potential moral high ground. A lot of people already do not see the value of protecting Ukraine. They're not in NATO. They have this minority of people that is aligned with Nazis, so that means the rest of them are probably Nazis. And they're not truly a democratic nation. But Russia can help with cancer. Oh, this is quite intelligent. Quite intelligent indeed. This leverage that Russia has offered itself is surprising. It truly is. Now, I could be all wrong. There's a final perspective there. That Russia wants to help people with cancer. That could exist. It could 100% exist. But how much are you willing to buy that this is the truth? I question. But this domino could have major repercussions moving forward. Another thing to be aware of, in 2024, North Korea hackers stole $1.8 billion from cryptocurrency platforms, a record-breaking figure. These groups account for over half of the $2.2 billion stolen worldwide. North Korea's government is doing their best to steal money from people. And it really shows you the volatility and the unsecured nature of cryptocurrency. It's quite frightening, isn't it? Another thing that you may be interested is stuff in regards to China. Now, there's two very interesting pieces of news that I think a lot of us should be aware of. First thing, American citizen Chen Jinping pleaded guilty to operating a secret police station in Manhattan on behalf of China's Ministry of Public Security. These outposts, reported in 53 countries, target Chinese nationals and pro-democracy activists. Are we compromised? Now, apparently, I think a political official in New York is also potentially being charged with conspiracy as well. But this is this could be another interesting domino. There's always been this lack of trust when it comes to China. But this piece of evidence will make negotiations with China very interesting for Donald Trump. Now, there's been constant claims that China has been infiltrating America. China has been putting their countries in America. And especially with stuff regarding TikTok. This just makes tensions increase ever so more. In addition to the fact that China has issued a warning to the United States, accusing them with, and I quote, playing with fire. Playing with fire, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that a threat? And the reason why they said that is because of our aid and support of Taiwan, a location that they so desperately want to take over for themselves. Oh, Donald Trump, you have a very interesting decision to make next year regarding Taiwan if China decides to make a move. And there seems to be a certain level of preparation. But I say that Donald Trump has all these decisions to make, and it seems like he's already pissing off a lot of our allies, despite everything I've already been talking about. Apparently, Denmark announced a $1.5 billion defense spending package for Greenland, focusing on drones, inspection ships, and dog sled teams. This announcement follows a renewed U.S. interest in Greenland, with Donald Trump suggesting that the U.S. should buy the territory of Greenland. Oh, Donald Trump loves to piss our allies off. But it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm sure you've heard of the situation with the Panama Canal as well. Because apparently Donald Trump has criticized Panama for high tariffs on the Panama Canal, threatening sanctions or even reclaiming control of Panama. This man has truly no chill, doesn't he? He has quite a very aggressive, very much so, aggressive personality to piss off our allies. Now, of course, the Panama Canal, I don't know if it's a president or prime minister or whatever his official position is. He's basically stands 10 toes saying that, yeah, you're not touching my stuff, son. So, how will this play out? Well, Donald Trump has so much to deal with the infiltration of China. With China saying that you guys are playing with fire regarding to Taiwan. With Russia playing this new chip of cancer vaccines in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. With the situation taking place with Denmark and saying that I might buy Greenland land. With the situation regarding the Panama Canal. And of course, probably the most popular conflict right now, Israel and Palestine. I mean, that one seems pretty cutthroat. He's going to give Israel whatever they want. So speaking of Israel and Palestine, apparently a civilian commission led by Kochav Alkiam Levy is investigating sexual violence by Hamas and Israel soldiers, calling for global recognition of genocide as a crime against humanity. I think, me and you, we can both agree, sexual violence against civilians should be a crime against humanity. I think we should agree to that. Let's shake hands. I agree. Sexual violence against civilians is no go in my book. No go by any means. Also, a couple of the last thing I want to talk about, I guess, is in regards to AI. So apparently, OpenAI has launched a number called 1-800-CHAT-GPT, a free service allowing US users to interact with ChatGPT via phone number for up to 15 minutes. AI is really taking over the world, isn't it? I've spoken on so many of the good things AI has been doing and the harms AI has been doing. We have to recognize that AI at this point is going to transform humanity to a very unprecedented direction. I still don't believe that there are proper checks and balances on current AI usage, with potential AI being used to mm, creates images of people inappropriately, to have very inappropriate conversations with AI bots, with AI potentially going rogue. How do we truly check for that? It's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. AI is quite the interesting component moving forward. I guess what my fascination with AI is I've worked with it with the job, and I might work with it more later. AI is the future. We can't deny it any further. So, our best interest, your best interest, is to not just be frightened of AI, not just completely disregard it and completely stay away from it. My suggestion is very simple: understand AI. The big lesson for today's podcast episode, of course, there's a lot of great information today, and the value of justice, I love to repeat throughout today's episode. But the big thing that I want to get across is that understanding and being knowledgeable on the future of humanity will be a very valuable tool moving forward. AI is the future. Just can't deny it at this point. With that said, that is all I have for today's podcast episode. Appreciate everybody who listened, and if you watch on my YouTube channel or if you're watching a clip, I do appreciate you as well. A little different style of podcast episode, and I will be having very interesting conversations, a little bit more casual. I'm not into the serious stuff. We could have a lot of very casual, very informative, very intelligent conversations without it being this stuck up formal procedure that I do consistently. I think we all get bored of that. I think at the end of the day, we're all people, right? We have a lot of variety of interests. Politics is super valuable, super important. I think a lot of people are very idiotic and potentially evil. But in order for me to truly resonate with the people, in order for me to truly captivate and guide people towards the right directions, I got to be able to talk to them. And so do you. You got to be able to talk to people. Have a conversation. Get to the nitty gritty. Truly understand where things lie at the bottom of the abyss. Because no matter how much I call it out, it won't change. So the approach has to be a little bit different. Condemn wrongful action, but I'll condemn it in a different way. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Rate the podcast 5 stars if you're listening. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course. Go check out US Resist News. Y'all have a good one. Take care. And peace.